time aboard. This is the Miles to Go podcast. And now here's your host, Ed Pizza.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Miles to Go podcast. We are here for episode 300. And while I would have loved to have had every single guest on that's ever been on the show in those 300 episodes, it would have been crowded. So I went with some of my favorites. And if you're watching on TV, on the YouTube TV, you can see Mr. Kerr, who is here quite frequently, pretty much every episode for like the last 2 years, man. And then we have Miss Summer Hull, who did not show up last today. Congratulations. And,
Thank you. I will accept my award. I appreciate that.
And Julian Keel, and we'll talk about his hat in just a little bit. But the Fantastic Four is back together podcasting for the first time in 2023. Hey guys, welcome back.
We will all be together in person very soon. No spoilers, but for the first time in, I don't know, ever. Like at least.
Oh my God, it has been a minute.
What are the odds that we all actually show up for that?
Well, Ed's not going to show up, but everybody else.
Oh yeah, Ed's gonna have a cross country college visit business meeting.
I have a plane ticket and a hotel reservation, which
Wow,
doesn't really mean anything.
I was gonna say, wow.
As I mentioned, we are 300 episodes in, which in layman's terms, since we record every single week, is over 6 years of podcasting. And I remember when I started this thing, I had all these hopes and dreams, many of which have not come to fruition in that time period, but still
Wait
stuck.
a minute. I've been here for 2 years. I'm not a hope and dream.
Exactly right. So what we want to try and cover today, and Mr. Kerr has a hard stop to get out in his RV, we're going to talk a little bit about the past, and we're going to talk a little bit about the future. And when we say the past, we're going to say that setting aside Ricky Bobby, who's in his own special category of, your wife calls you a co-host too, right? Is that the deal?
She's never used that word, but she's used a lot of other colorful words.
Okay, so my co-host, Mr. Kerr, Summer also wins another category, which is this is your lucky number 13th time on the episode, so on the show.
So apologies up front. We're cursed. It's gonna be okay.
She said cursed. That's funny.
And the very, very first time you were on the show, you know what we talked about?
Disney?
One would think, but no, we talked about Hawaii, one of your
well, that would be my second choice. Well, then the second one had to have been Disney. I'm just going to go with that final answer.
Repeatedly about Disney. And I'm pretty sure Julian remembers the first time we were on the podcast because there's still a picture floating around that I show people.
Is it when I pulled out all my credit cards?
It was the baggie. It was the drug baggie with like 75 credit cards in it.
Still have now I have 2 drug baggies. There's so many old credit cards. I got 2 drug
baggies.
And
only one holds credit cards. The other is.
That's right. And the other one, right. Holds
the other one,
debit
in fairness, given how old he is, it holds all of his pills. So
there's nothing wrong with having a pill bag.
I'm with you, man. There's one in my suitcase.
I was going to say,
you and I are the old ones. You and I are the old ones.
That is correct.
When you're really old is that I start getting ads on my Instagram feed for pill holders, and it's like,
yeah,
okay,
you got to have them by day, I think, at a certain point, and
but
I don't think you travel with it too.
I don't think the 25-year-olds get those ads though. I really don't. They don't
actually.
Have ADs
you know you're really old when you locked yourself out of your Instagram and can't get back in. That's how you know you're old.
Right, but when you're among friends who have also locked you out of your Uber Eats account for you, I mean, it's
And do we ever talk about that on an episode? Perhaps that we should talk about Ed getting me banned from Uber.
Things we're all banned from. There's your B-side episode.
There is your B-side.
Can't answer that episode. I plead the fifth.
So we are going to talk a little bit. Julian, tilt the head forward so we can tease. Yeah, we're gonna talk a little bit about the points path in a few minutes, which you would already know about if you were a member of the Slack community, which is a great tease for if you want to support the show. There's a link in the show notes. If you want to join us on a weekly basis for happy hours, all kinds of other fun stuff, you get to look at new products as they come to market, which we'll talk about. And you get to see Richard and I pop up every once in a while and say smart and engaging things. Not often, but every once in a while.
I think the topic of conversation today has been how unsmart I am.
So we can't give Julian. Can we give your Instagram handle even though you're locked out? That would be cool.
You can give it. Yeah, it's at Julian Keel, but I can't get to it.
I still regularly tag him and stuff just to frustrate him.
If I ever get back in, I'm gonna have a bazillion notifications.
But yeah, how would he know?
Where are you, man? You okay?
On Twitter, he is at Julian Keel.
I think you mean X.
No, we mean Twitter.
No, we don't say X on here. Sorry. Yeah, have you been listening to the show? Maybe you missed this part.
I have not.
Okay, all right, fair. My PITA co-host is at Kerr Points on all those social media places. And our favorite, are those cat headphones? Or they're not unicorn
I
headphones?
did not choose the unicorn today. I just
Okay.
went lime green, $9, Amazon. Got them 10
Okay.
years ago. You're welcome.
So my lime green brother from another mother, Summer, is at Mommy Points. And if you want to text us or leave us a voicemail, you can do that at 571-293-6659. And lastly, I am on social media at Pizza in Motion. So yeah, we're sitting here 300 plus episodes in. I have no idea how long we've all been friends for, but it's most of those 300 episodes, except for that rough time where none of us really like Julian. But we'll get back to that in a minute. When I started to try to put this episode together, I had these like massive big plans of like, hey, let's look at where the industry has gone in the past 5 years. And I realized as I look through the titles, it's just amazing how much has changed over the past 5 years. So there was really no way that we were going to be able to process even the top 10 hits of what's happened. But I think if we want to think about, how each of us approaches things nowadays, I would say, and again, I know you guys will correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the biggest thing I've seen when I look through all the titles of the past 5 years is that if you weren't focused on flexible currency 5 or 6 years ago, there was still enough value. I mean, we still had award charts for some airlines and stuff like that. If you're only dealing with an affinity credit card right now and your points are all on one program, I think we'd all agree you're probably screwed. I mean, it's not a world where you can live in one program anymore.
Yeah, I mean, you shouldn't be, certainly, right? At least you should not be collecting points or miles with just one airline or hotel program, because
Unless it's
that's,
Delta. And then,
yeah, right, because, all hail Delta. But no, it's just, right, at this point, the only real reason to have an airline or hotel co-branded credit card is for the perks, like a check bag and whatever it might be.
yeah.
Actually collecting those miles or points is not a good choice. You're certainly going to do better with a 2% cash back card, and you're probably going to do better with a flexible points card, like a Chase or a Amex membership rewards or whatever it might be.
Yeah, and I think when we think about the world of elite status, I think we all still share some ties to elite status, but that's also died quite a bit over the past 5 years as well. And Summer, I think you're a great example of it. You said to the group more than once over the past year that you realistically think that next year or this year will be your last year with top tier United status.
Yeah.
Where
So I
things
said it
stand, there's
last year, and it's now
right.
this year.
You're
So
right, and
it's
then you
true.
threaded a needle.
Yeah, it's true. I think that 5 years ago, flexible points currencies were still where you should have been, but you absolutely should be there now if you're not. But yeah, elite status has gone on a roller coaster, and I think that probably predating 5 years ago even, it was realistic. You could sort of play the game, and if you
Mhm.
traveled a fair amount, like, you could make it happen. And I think that was starting to not be true right before the pandemic when the
Yep.
requirements were ramping up, but then the pandemic, for all of its awfulness, it did give a reprieve on that, and it was
Mhm.
easier once again to hit Hyatt Globalist and United 1K and things that I hadn't been able to do in a couple of those years leading up to the pandemic because the requirements had jumped. And we're going back to that now. So it's almost like the pandemic Thor blip, although it was awful, we're now back to where I think we would have been otherwise. And yeah, no, I'm gonna get kicked off the United 1K train unless they really realize at the end of the year they're coming up short and make it doable, which I don't think is gonna happen. And Hyatt will be by the skin of my teeth.
Yeah. Do you think this is the last year you'll hit Hyatt, or do you think that you've got enough magic pixie dust to find a way to 60 nights by hook or by crook next year?
I plan to try. Yeah, because I'm not chasing United with my card spending, which I think, like Julian said, the benefits are a reason to have a co-branded card. The bump up to elite status is another on some cards. Delta make it really hard. But that's okay. It's not my program. But Hyatt, it's still doable. But my Hyatt card essentially has all of my non-bonus everyday spending on it because I need
Right.
every single dollar and every single night.
Yeah. Yeah.
Will that continue though after the end of the year?
For me,
Yeah.
yes. Yeah, we'll
Really?
start over again
I-
trying to play
So
that.
you're
Silver's
still
not going
gonna
to give
keep-
up Hyatt. There's no
You're
way.
still going to keep chasing Hyatt.
Hyatt, yes. I mean, I seem to have, at least this year and last year, just enough work travel, vacation travel, in-laws that need a room, and card spending to put it within reach. But it is a reach. Like, it's not easy. So I really can't play any other elite status game and that one at the same time.
Yeah, and I think, Hyatt's the one status that's still left that I think has a very quantifiable benefit. If you feel like you've got a trip in the next 12 months that you can reliably use a suite upgrade for, because they have gotten a little more difficult to use, but there's a real tangible benefit there that's hard to quantify exactly in dollars, but generally speaking exceeds the value that you might lose putting some non-bonus spend on the Hyatt card versus, a flexible currency card. Is that
Yeah, and I
yeah,
value Hyatt points so highly anyways that it's not really all
fair?
that much of a trade-off. If I was
Fair.
earning Bilt points or Chase points, they're gonna probably end up with Hyatt more times than not anyway. So yeah, that's my one that I still run on the wheel for a little bit. But no, I'm not doing a single extra flight on United this year. I'm gonna land where I'm gonna land unless they throw something crazy at the ninth inning.
Yeah,
I
Richard
don't see
doesn't
that
think that's
happening.
happening. And
I don't
Richard,
either.
Richard at this point may have more airline status than I do with your collection going over there. But in reality, other than the United status match that you ran this year, is there anything that you really chased this year? Hyatt was easy for you to grab given your business travel. Was there anything you had to work hard for?
I'm still chasing Marriott right now, believe it or not. Yeah.
Whoa, really?
You know, they have a credit card for that.
I
That's
have
like
2 of 'em.
7. They all begin with D.
That's the only reason I'm even close to platinum. I'm at 43
But
nights now.
they
and
have a card that gives you platinum. There should be no reason to
I'm
chase
I'm
Marriott.
not paying
Right, he's-
$650
yeah,
annual
You've
fee.
he's
met
not doing
Richard,
us.
right?
I'm
You've met
not
him, right?
I'm not paying a $650 annual fee
Oh my God.
for
Okay.
platinum.
Can we please do an episode one day on why that card actually still makes sense? Because I'll show up for that one.
I
Well,
mean, great thing about America is everybody's entitled to their wrong opinion. So I mean,
They sure are. And they're chasing Marriott status when there's a card.
But see, like, the
the
reason is I got to travel anyways. I got to get more Marriott points so that I can stay at the Swalfin down in Orlando. And if I'm staying at the Swalfin, I'm not going to pay additional crazy money for breakfast and stuff for the family. So I don't want to pay Disney prices. I want to stay on property. You got to have Swalfin, which means you got to have Marriott points. And if Bilt is paying for my work hotel stays, I'm just
Okay,
funneling
fine. If
that
it's
in.
someone else's money, then it's not as bad. But
Yeah.
yeah.
So
No, that's why I have that card. It's for Swalfin reasons primarily and St. Regis reasons.
not that fancy.
I'm right.
I would be
right.
so out of place at a St. Regis. Even the staff would be like, "Hey, that guy, he shouldn't be staying here."
They still let you in. I've tried it. I promise.
not-
It works. They let
He's
the
not one of
southern
us.
they let the southern non-fancy people in just fine.
Yeah, Marriott's the only thing I'm chasing. The rest of it is really either accidental or, because such a great opportunity comes up, like this Frontier deal that I did. I mean, 100K status for $199. Like one family trip, we get that money back, and now we got the entire next 15 months to fly anywhere Frontier flies for 19 or $29 all in. Like, just a good deal like that. So no chasing required. In that case, I did fork over the money to make that happen, but it's because I'll get it back many times over next year. But otherwise, no, I'm not chasing. And again, like I've said, I think the last 2 weeks, I don't think anybody else should be chasing either.
Yeah, there's really not much that I'm quote unquote chasing. I'm probably gonna go for executive platinum, but I mean a big part of that is really just because they really timed it very well with this 6 miles per dollar promo that they just did with Apple, and the fact that we needed to buy a few computers for the business. So that's gonna, assuming that all posts correctly because it hasn't posted yet, that's gonna push me much closer to executive platinum, or I don't even think I'd be going for that. Julian convinced me not to chase Delta Diamond. I'm gonna stop there at platinum.
I like to think common sense.
No,
convinced
it
me
was
that-
me. No, it was
No,
me.
definitely gonna give that one to Julian. I don't have common sense when it comes to status. I just chase all of them.
I know.
Let's be honest.
I do. I mean, I think that, and I think we've been all saying this for years now. The average person should not be chasing elite status. It just doesn't make sense. Elite status really is designed for people who are traveling a lot, and more so than ever, are now spending a lot, whether it be traveling or on their cards or whatever. And the average person who only travels a couple of times a year, it just doesn't make sense. It's not a good use of your time. There's a huge opportunity cost. You can do better.
Well, let's be honest. Even if you are on the road and you are chasing that status, unless you have an edge case, you're not getting a ton of value out of that status. Richard gets quite a few upgrades from United because he's flying on a very unpopular route. On the flip side, I'm global services with United and typically not clearing upgrades on a regular basis. So you really the number of benefits that you get has been reduced, and your ability to use them is also reduced. So it's a tough one to chase. And turning back the dial a second, when we look at, I put together a list of episode counts over the years, and episode 100 I think goes back to something that Summer said about the pandemic putting things on pause and where we sit from a value standpoint. Episode 100's title was Hyatt goes peak and off peak. And that was, almost 4 years ago. The subtitle was Kirby Takes Over United, which, has probably not been good for anybody who's been flying United in that time period. But it's interesting to think that Hyatt made this first announcement almost 4 years ago. And, based on the way things were throughout the pandemic, it really wasn't impactful for the first little bit because they kept delaying it. And now we sit here as peak and off peak. And I think, Summer, Richard said something the last time he and I recorded that I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on, which is he just sort of feels like, based on everything that's come along recently with Hyatt, with new all-inclusive properties, the Homes and Hideaways announcement, he sort of feels like we're overdue for the next Hyatt reckoning, whether that's getting rid of charts or a quote-unquote devaluation. What's your opinion there?
I don't like the truth sometimes. I think we all feel that, and we feel it in part because they've become an outlier in some ways, and we feel it because we know they've gotten some investment, and I think the back-end software technology to be able to do it, and we just live in fear because our hobby, there's always opportunities, which I
Mhm.
think the four of us love to find and use and share knowledge of, but on the whole, it's gotten harder and harder and less lucrative for the average person, and so, yeah, it's logical to think that our favorite program will take some additional hits in the future. But I
Yeah.
hope not. I hope that they differentiate by being different. But, then there's the reality of it that may not happen forever.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's inevitable that it will happen. It's just a question of when. In the same way that Alaska was at one point, I think, significantly differentiating themselves, and now I would suggest less so. Eventually, Hyatt has to come back to the pack. It may not be next year. It might still be a couple of years down the line, and it'll probably be slow, but I do think it's inevitable.
Yeah, I mean, I think Alaska proved that you could have a profitable model and not follow what everyone else is doing. But to your point, I think that Hyatt probably has to be less rewarding / more profitable to maintain what everybody else is doing from a results performance for a publicly held company. So I think it'd be foolish to think that it's not going to happen. I think, one of the things that Richard suggested last week was that they probably need to do it just because of the misalignment right now of all the different products that they have. And my argument against that was I feel like Marriott has sort of kept some of this outlier stuff, like Marriott Homes and Villas, doesn't really conform from a points earning or redeeming standpoint to anything else in the program. It's just sort of an outlier. So I'm not convinced that, Richard, that you're right on homes versus hideaways being the reason why it's more likely to happen, because they've got a mess of charts. But I do think they probably are worth a little bit too much compared to their competition right now.
Yeah, too many products. You got what do you how many, 6 different charts? You got regular charts, which is off peak and peak, and then you've got the Mirabelle chart, and then you've got the Ziva's large chart, then you got the all inclusive chart, and then they've got Mr. and Miss Smith to roll into this with homes and hideaways. Like too many.
Hyatt, it's okay. We can read charts. Like, this is really not a problem. We promise. We'll continue to educate people how to read charts. Don't
Right.
listen. It's fine. It's really fine. Don't make any changes.
Many charts are great.
Charts are great.
And even if you don't want to have a chart for
Well,
homes and hideaways, we're cool with that. That's cool. Keep that dynamic if you need to.
you sent me my column from 2019. I was just reading a sentence from this about the Marriott interim award chart pricing. I said, with top tier hotels currently capped at 60,000 Marriott points through March, thousands of members have scored great awards for 2019. But take advantage while you can. Capped at 60,000 points. Charts are a good thing.
I know.
There were so many
That was
things-
when I got my St. Regis stays in. That was a great
Yeah.
moment.
There were so many things in that article I didn't want to read because I didn't want you to look back on all these things that you said that are just like, faint memories.
It was only 4 years ago that Marriott's were capped at 60,000 points. Right now, what is the St. Regis at Maldives? Like 120,000 a night. Like, what are these things? Like,
It's over 100. I don't know if it's 120, but yeah, I mean, clearly over 100 is not a problem for Marriott World.
Here's a question. Is there any change in the trajectory here in the next 6 years? Or are we just going to continue to see more points being issued, right? Which is really the source of these devaluations and changes. And therefore, because there are more points in the ecosystem, you have to keep raising prices and getting rid of charts and things like that.
I don't think anything's going to change until people stop getting co-brand cards. And that's not anytime
Yeah.
soon. So, nope.
But
Yeah.
I think that we saw last month with Delta, you can go too far and you
Mhm.
can have the average Joe decide that this is nonsense and not worth doing anymore. And where that line is on the redemption and earning side, I mean, obviously Delta was the elite status side, although I'm not sure that message was fully absorbed across the country. But you can go too far and people can decide you're not worth the hassle. So I don't think it's impossible for things to cycle, but I think that we're certainly not going to see that in any near term.
Yeah, I agree. I think you're right. There's going to be peaks and valleys as it goes, but the overall trajectory, I think, probably stays as it is.
But could someone in some number of years say, you know what, we're going to change loyalty by making it predictable, and you know what you're going to need to pay and you know what you're going to need to earn? And that all of a sudden is a novel idea 8 years from now? Like, it wouldn't be the first time that trends have recycled.
Mhm.
There's no money in
Agreed.
that.
There's
no
not
money in that.
today, but
Could it be though?
I don't think any of us can know the future for sure. And I don't think that Delta expected for its blowback to be as hard and fast as it was. So I do think there's invisible lines that I just don't think it's impossible. But no, I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. And I think the general trend is the general trend.
Yeah, I think it has to, for that to happen, it would have to be either an existing airline or hotel that really sort of fell on hard times and was really trying to draw back customers, or a new chain or a new airline, something that was really trying to draw in new people. But as far as as the status quo, no, I agree. I don't think that's going to happen.
I think it's all
Well,
going to go. So the one program that I see have tremendous success around the world, but not in the United States, is the Accor hotel program. It's a flat redemption or revenue-based program. 1 point's worth 2 euro cents. And that thing wins all the awards at the Freddy's for all the
Yep.
regions outside of the U.S. Their hotels are actually and objectively amazing brands and hotels.
Yeah.
And people love that program outside the United States. And I think that people are going to look at that program more and more. And I mean, I've had conversations in the industry about it. And I really think in 8 years, that's where we're going to be.
Well, you know, my favorite loyalty program in a day in and day out basis right now, and I think most of you guys on this chat have heard this, is
It's the
McDonald's.
Yeah, I knew she was going to say the
McDonald's.
McDonald's app.
Like, the points aren't worth very much at McDonald's. You have to like eat a lot to get a free Happy Meal. But what they have in there that keeps you engaged and coming back are like the unique personalized discounted offers to you and whoever else has the app. And so it wouldn't shock me either if we see more of that, yes, there's still the points earning, but McDonald's, at least, that's not the number one draw of their app or their program. But I'm absolutely a more dedicated McDonald's customer now because of their loyalty program.
Because
I-
it's
yeah.
designed to make you loyal, not designed to make money in of itself, right? It is still
Sure.
actually a loyalty program instead of a bank, right? That's why I think it works so well. Because I agree. I've been using that for a long time, and I think it's awesome. Like, we're going to drive today halfway to Orlando, and dinner will probably be at McDonald's, and there's probably going to be some coupon that like makes dinner $16 for all of us.
Well,
On the
I
flip
think-
side, I, as all of you know, I recently introduced you all to the new Subway rewards program.
Yeah,
They
I'm in
revamped.
for Subway status. That's what I'm
Check
talking
That's
Please.
about.
right. Subway's elite status. And I believe Richard's comment was, who designed this? Who was in charge of designing this, and how much did that cost?
Yeah, the consulting firm that designed it. What is the top tier elite benefit? A bag of chips if you buy a
I
sandwich?
think it was a bag of
all
chips.
that
Was
and a
the,
bag of Fritos.
I mean,
Yeah.
frankly, though, if you're going to design a Subway loyalty program, what is a good thing? A good thing is you pay for a sandwich, you get a meal. Like, that's a benefit. I would.
But you don't get the $3 drink. You just get a bag of chips. And
Well,
you still-
that's.
I mean, why
Well,
couldn't
that
you?
and a
the
bag
drink
of
costs less
chips.
than the chips.
Is there any reason you couldn't basically design it exactly the same as the McDonald's program, right? With the points, and you redeem them and you get free food.
I mean, the gamification and offers is what I think is going to make people like loyalty programs
Yes.
moving forward. Like, what is interesting about this? Why do I want to interact with this?
I will log into the McDonald's app, even if I'm pretty sure I'm not going to McDonald's today, because I want to see, well, what is it? Like, I mean, you never know.
Well,
They gotta make it. You gotta be able to stack those things, though, right? Because you can only get a redemption. You can't get a deal with a redemption or whatever. You can only like get one.
Yeah.
Julian, are you not
have to
using
do
2
player
different
mode.
accounts? Yeah, are you?
I
Player
am
mode.
not.
Are you a McDonald's? What a newbie, man!
I
guess-
know. What am
Your
I
dog,
thinking?
your dog needs a McDonald's loyalty
How are you
account.
not doing 2-player mode when you go to
Player mode.
McDonald's, man? Come on.
Come on now. We all know this.
For dinner tonight, Mrs. Kerr will be redeeming points for a free Happy Meal, and I
Uh-huh.
will be getting a deal for 20% off or
Yeah,
something.
he'll be paying for like
Wow.
a cheeseburger and getting 10-piece nuggets.
Yeah.
It's great.
Come on, man.
2-player.
What a newbie.
What
I, think it's, I do think it's
Hey,
possible that
remember a few minutes ago when I said don't be irrational about chasing elite status and do stupid things? Okay, I just want to say that. So.
Saving money is so wonderful. Dinner on the road for $17 for 4 people is fantastic. Like,
well, yeah, but that's inflation. It was $16 like 30 seconds ago. So
yeah, probably. Which leads me to today's macroeconomics discussion that Julian's so excited.
Oh my God. Well, I will say, like on this whole experiences thing, I will say, like that is one comment that the Hyatt CEO made recently, Not to say that we're going to draw a parallel from McDonald's, with these, specialized offers to, where Hyatt's going to go next, but they've said that they want to focus more on unique experiences. And I think they've tried with some of the partners that they bolted on. I just don't know that they made a huge difference. I mean, they had Lynn Black Excursion, stuff like that. Like, they're all cool things, but I don't know that I've used any of them yet. And so I think that's one of those things where, like, all that stuff looks very cool. I haven't redeemed for anything sort of outside of the standard, super awesome Hyatt property stuff. And maybe that's just us, that we're still like, hotel junkies. But I think the majority of folks probably aren't redeeming for that ultra cool stuff. I mean, since Starwood went away,
Lindblad
I
is like
haven't done.
$30,000 for a cruise, right? I mean, it's like crazy.
Yeah, but their Broadway tickets are actually pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like
If they want to
everything.
hire me to consult, you need to show that stuff better. When you're booking your hotel in New York, there's all
Right.
these other things that should pop up too.
Well, and I think on the experience side of things, I think, Built is obviously into it now, so we're going to see how they go with it. But I mean, Starwood was great about that for so long. And then I feel like Marriott, while it's still there, they really don't put it front and center. You sort of have to hunt for it. And they don't talk about it the same way they used to. So they're investing in almost all the same level of excursions, but they don't really talk about it the way they used to.
Since I'm an avid Marriott hotel stayer for the last 3 weeks,
There you go.
when you
that's
walk
good.
in, all the TVs now, when you walk into a Marriott room at all the 3 brands I've stayed at, they're all the
All
Marriott.
3 brands you said it.
Yeah. But all the TVs
Yeah.
are the same Marriott Moments videos of like people redeemed to play golf with a pro and whatever else, and those are all the videos now. So maybe they're coming back around to investing in it.
Yeah, but what are they doing at the other 128 brands is the
Right.
question.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it might be
Richard's
different.
There's only
Richard's at
28
3.
more
You missed one.
brands.
You have stayed at 3 brands. You've stayed at 1.68 brands, percentage brands
So,
of Marriott.
So fast forwarding to episode 200, and then we want to talk about Julian's hat. Episode 200 the title was Breaking Down Venture X and Another Insane Stunt. The insane stunt was our 2021 Disney fundraiser, Give Kids the World. But it was also when Venture X became a thing. And it's interesting to think that it's been, call it 2 years. If we had to give Capital One a grade on a report card right now for Venture X based on where it was when it started and what we thought it was going to be and where we are today, I know Richard's going to give the lowest grade. So we'll start with Summer. This Summer, if you had to put a letter grade on how valuable the Venture X program is right now, what would you give it?
Well, I just want to know why Richard's going to give it a low grade.
I do too, because I assume
I assume it's the restaurants thing that they
have it
took
right
the
here.
restaurants out
I
right
think it's
after
just because he's a
Richard
curmudgeon,
renewed.
but that's just me.
Well, and that too, right?
Yeah.
So not now being very hesitant with this lead-in and not having the TPG award or the TPG point valuations pulled up at hand.
Oh, do you want me to vamp and let Julian answer first? Julian,
No,
go.
it's fine. I don't have the card, so I will use that as my litmus test.
That's because you have the built card instead, right?
No.
No,
I
she
do
didn't.
have a couple of built points. I love the free trivia, but no, I love what Venture X is doing. I think it's been a slow build on some
Mhm.
fronts. Like Lounge is literally a slow build, right?
Literally, yeah.
Literally. And I think that they have some really good transfer partners. I don't know that that's the side of their business that they have promoted the most, nor is it the one where they've got the most like household name options for general American.
Right.
And they don't have a ton of bonus categories, and I love bonus categories. So for me, like I love that it exists, and I think it is building, but it's been a slow build from my own personal perspective. I don't have it yet.
My only comment about Venture X is I think it's going to be a slow death. Like the program's way too expensive. Customer acquisition cost is way too high. People are probably not revolving on that like they thought. The rewards program's expensive, even though they have no domestic transfer partners. And we're already starting to see it, right? I mean, the $300 travel credit is, what did they just do to that? It's now just in the portal instead of $300 travel credit. Their transfer partners just went away for 2 weeks earlier this year with no explanation and no communications, probably because of a contractual argument with their loyalty platform provider that makes those transfers happen. I just don't think it's going to go. It's like a carbon copy of the CSR. Like I still
I was
great
going to
products.
say 80% of what you just said was also true for the
Yeah.
CSR.
And like the CSR is essentially being moonlit, right? They want people to get the freedom or the CSP. They don't want people to get the CSR anymore. So I think it's going to go the same way. They want people to get the venture, which is going to be a more profitable card.
I mean, Prestige. So Prestige had some similarities to what you're describing there too.
Yeah. It's just not a sustainable product. Do I think it's great? Yeah. Like I literally used it to rent a car in Houston last week because it's primary car rental insurance, 2x points.
Right.
Great. I can erase it with points if I want to because it's travel. Like I can go to lounges. I'm going to keep the card. But from a business standpoint, that doesn't mean I think the business model makes sense.
So I don't care about the business model, but I do have a Venture X, and it is in fact right now my everything else card in my wallet, but mostly just because my Blue Biz Plus was for a long time, but I have too many Amex points, and so I
Cry me a
switched
There's
over.
no such thing. I can
No,
help you. But okay, you're on.
oh, okay. Thanks, Summer. I appreciate that. But yeah, I think for $395, I think that's the current annual fee, right? You get the $300 travel credit. They did move it into the portal, but my sense is that was mostly just to keep people from gaming it because people were booking and then canceling and keeping the credit. And then 10,000 miles of anniversary it basically pays for itself. I don't think it's not that hard to use the $300 credit, right? You just book any airfare in the portal. So I'd probably keep it. I don't, use it. I mean, I don't use the perks very often because it's just priority pass and I rarely ever go through Dallas and the new one's Denver or DC. I can't even remember.
Denver will be the third one.
What's
Dulles,
what?
Dulles
Dulles
just
just
opened.
opened.
Dulles
Right.
just opened. Denver coming soon
Right.
soon
So
to a mountain near you.
I actually don't use the perks very often, but to be honest, if you think about it, you could argue it is in some ways better than a plain old venture, in that you're getting the anniversary points plus the credit that make up for the annual fee, and you don't have those options on the venture. So you could argue it's $95 better. That's only if you're going to use the miles and the credit. But I don't think they're that hard to use. So it'll stick around in my wallet for a while.
All right. Well, we do have a hard stop from Mr. Kerr, so we're going to let him go first on our last question, and then he's going to go bye-bye, and I'm going to be left with just 3 of the Fantastic Four. Mr. Kerr, assuming you're still talking to me in 2 years.
What a weird thing to say.
I know.
Is and about to break some news that
Is there something I don't know about
exactly
you breaking up yet?
Right.
What do you think the title of episode 400 is going to be? 2 years from now, what do you think we're talking about in the world of miles and points?
Why I'm not talking to Ed Pizzarello anymore. I think it'd be good.
Well, I don't know. You could name my podcast that, to be clear.
And then I'm going to dial into that episode and listen.
the great Kerr
Fake news,
pizza
fake
breakup.
news.
Yeah.
That might actually be how we get Summer to watch. We tell her about how our friendship is ended. That'll get her
Julian
into
might even dial in for the drama.
I'd watch the first 5 minutes. So
Yeah.
yeah.
In 2 years, what are we going to be talking about? I really don't see anything that drastic changing in the next 2 years. Everybody's making money right now. So as long as that continues, then don't break what's not broken, Delta. So
Too late.
yeah, I have no idea. There's not going to be any new players on the scene. We may be down an airline because of a merger, but otherwise, it's the status quo, I guess is what I would call it. Or
Well-
why Good Hyatts now costs 80,000 points a night for base room.
Boy, would I be happy in 2 years if it was only 80? That's a good question.
Yeah,
I
for
probably would be
base
pre-
room.
I prob-
Remember now, not
I'd
suites,
probably be
base
pretty
room.
upset about that. Yeah, I'd probably be pretty upset. Well, last stat factoid before you run away. Over the course of the show, rough math says that somewhere around 55 million minutes of listening time to the show. I haven't calculated view time since we've only been, broadcasting for 10 or 12 of these on video, which means that you and I have talked to each other. People have listened to us talk to each other the equivalent of like 8 million minutes, which sounds a little obscene.
Everybody listening to this, you're welcome. Yeah, that's right. You keep coming back for more.
I'm gonna come back for more, but I appreciate
Julian's face just said, "It wasn't me."
I'm just
It's so funny that Julian and Summer don't listen to the show. It's like both of our wives don't listen to the show. I don't even know anybody who does listen to the show. Oh, I do have to say one thing. He's probably listening, and then I got to go. Michael flew down all the way from Columbus, Ohio to Houston last weekend just to go and attend the football game with us in the suite. He had a great time. He walked in. He said, "Hey, man, I love the podcast, listening to you and Ed." So shout out to Michael from Columbus, Ohio. Thanks, man, for coming down last week. Had a great time, and to everybody else, thanks for listening. Ed, if recollection is serving me correctly, that wasn't the right way to say that.
No, but that's
you
okay.
have-
We're used to it. And you wonder why we make fun of you in the chat.
Julian's like, "Oh, yeah,
all
see, I
about-
got all the
all
ammunition
about
Julian needs."
macroeconomics. Yeah, go ahead.
But Ed, you have not missed a week, right, since you started recording the show?
I have not. Well, no, I
So-
missed one. You did one episode with Howie. You did one episode with
right.
Howie. You kept the live streak going, but of the
But
300
Miles to
episodes,
Go has
200
existed every week since you started.
every week we
right?
live content.
That's
for
pretty
6 years.
impressive. So
Yay,
yeah.
Ed! Good job, buddy.
Shout out to you, man. That's a lot of work to make this thing happen. Like literally, I just have to show up and talk, and Ed does all the hard stuff. So I appreciate that. And as long as you can let me show up and talk, well then, ladies and gentlemen, I'll be here. So,
Well, and Jeremiah has helped with a lot of those minutes too. But I have enjoyed most of the 8 million minutes that you and I have spent together. So hopefully there will be a few more.
I don't know.
But
You
for
make
now,
me nervous now. Setting a 2-year ahead breakup. That's like some crazy Tinder girl stuff right there. I don't know.
Oh God. Oh boy. We go off the rails as Mr. Kerr goes off to the RV. So enjoy your RV, which I won't be. Sorry I'm not joining you guys in Orlando.
See you tomorrow,
Later.
Summer. Later.
All right, guys. So we have kicked Mr. Kurt out, and it's just the two of you.
Can I answer the question you asked him? Because I have
Oh, everybody. Yeah, I want both the answers. Julian, you get even more time to come up with your answer for episode 400.
Thank God.
So I don't. So preface, like I'm not this much of an idiot. I don't actually think this will be what happens for episode 400. But if we're going to dream and come up with something that we wish would happen for episode 400, that's the direction I'm taking this. So I think that we've already sort of established it's going to be more of the same, at least for a while, with loyalty programs, most likely. What I would like to see is some brand that we care about introduce a loyalty program of their own, which of course they're going to have a need to do it, right? So I would like a Disney loyalty program. Their parks actually have been strong, so it's probably not going to happen. But the company as a whole has not been on the trajectory that they want to be on. So if somehow they could layer in like Disney Plus, which I know is their priority, and some other things, bundle it together, come up with a loyalty program, I would love to be talking about that in episode 400, as far-fetched as it may be.
Yeah, that is a little far-fetched. I think
I don't care.
I think we thought that they would have done that by now, honestly. Like, I thought when Disney Plus came out, I thought they would do a better job. And I think they've done some things along the way. There've been, like, Disney Plus Day down at the parks and stuff like that. So I think they've definitely tried to go in that direction. I think
Then to cruise things, and now they're
Mhm.
having while this I don't think it will happen, but they have been having to dig deeper into their promotions pocket that I have
Mhm.
seen in a really long time. $50 kid tickets to Disneyland, like, that wasn't a thing.
Sure.
And so no, I don't think it'll actually happen, but I do think that the variables that make something like that, at least something that gets said out loud, are higher than they've been in a number of years,
I would agree.
especially leading up to the pandemic, and then even when they were one of the first openers after the pandemic. And so, whatever, I'd love to see it. Universal's coming out with a new credit card, so maybe there'll be a wild card in the theme park realm that I would love to break down with you on episode 400.
Yeah, to your point, I think when things get tough, and I mean, Disney stock has gone down quite a bit over the past, call it, a year. When things get tough, the other levers are going to have to pull, and they may run out of levers. I think. While I don't necessarily know that it will be a quote unquote true loyalty program, I think you're probably on the right track for synergies. So I think they'll continue to do things that reward you for playing in multiple pools, whatever it is. I mean, like Lego has this thing now where you can obviously earn Lego points when you buy stuff, but they also have interactivity where if you're scanning the QR codes on their boxes, or if you're reading special articles in their magazine, that all those things count towards points towards your Lego program. They're all small numbers, but to my kid, they're all meaningful because they're interactions. And so they're, now my son interacts with Lego in a couple of different ways that are more engaging. So I could see Disney do some of that. And quite frankly, given that generation, they should be cognizant of the fact that all these kids will have smartphones or connectivity in some way, shape, or form, and getting them to engage. We kind of saw that with Play Disney in the beginning, but again, I think maybe COVID delayed that.
All right, it's you, Julian.
Well, my answer is easy, actually, because I think we already talked about it, which we said earlier. Do we see any changes in the trajectory of what we've been seeing in the last few years? And the answer, I think we all agreed, was probably not. So therefore, what happens in 2 years is just more of what we've seen in the last 2 years. We'll see probably ever bigger credit card bonuses. We'd probably be talking on episode 400 about the new 200,000 point bonus on the,
Venture Y.
I mean, Venture
The first
Y,
1
right?
million point sign up bonus.
Right, exactly. The first 500,000 point IHG sign up bonus, or whatever
Oh,
it might
God.
be. But we'll see. It's simply there's been no stop to that escalation. So there's no reason to think it would change in the next 2 years. And then, of course, on the flip side of that, we'll continue to see more devaluations and more prices continue to go up and charts continue to go away. So that's it will take something to happen, some sort of external factor, I think, to change that. If the Durbin amendment were to pass, that would change the credit card interchange fees and things like
Oh,
that. Would
let's
cap
not
them.
have that be the title of a podcast.
I
Right.
certainly
Yeah.
don't. Yeah, yeah.
That could
That
be
would not be
that could be
good.
the episode that could be the title of the last episode if that happens.
Yeah, yeah. And then the other thing is that along with that is I think all of us have been doing this for a long time, and in the time that we've been doing it, and in the last 6 years, we've seen more and more people get into the community and into the industry, and we see lots of social media influencers talking about points and miles and things like that certainly didn't exist when the
Yeah.
three of us started 10 years ago or whatever it might be, 15 years ago. So I'm sure I think
20.
as 20, yeah, right. As the point values get bigger and you see people, oh, look, I went around the world or whatever, I stay at this fancy hotel, we'll just see more and more of that. So I don't mean to sound negative. I mean, big credit card bonuses are great. And, there's certainly aspects of the current environment that are terrific. And we all do travel using these, made up currencies, and we do get places for free. So there's certainly a positive side, but the more positive there is, the more people get involved and the more demand there is, and the harder it gets to really find the really sweet spot.
Yeah, I would agree with all of that. And before I give my final title for episode 400, this is your sneak peek, and I want to have you back on longer to go into deeper detail, but we got to talk about the hat. I mean, you can't come on the episode and show off the hat and not talk a little bit about PointsPath. This has
Yeah.
been under wraps for a while, but tell folks what PointsPath is.
Yeah, and I have to really thank the folks in Ed's Slack group who are a terrific bunch of people who have been helping me test out PointsPath. Well, PointsPath is essentially a way to answer two questions that I think a lot of people have, and especially people in the beginner to intermediate stage of points and miles, which is one, how do I redeem these points or miles effectively for travel? Like, how do I find flights that are available with points that I have? And two, when am I getting a good deal? A lot of people don't redeem their points or their miles because they don't know when they should be paying cash and when they should be redeeming, because there's no really way to indicate which is the better deal when you're looking at a flight. So what PointsPath does, it's a Chrome extension that runs on top of Google Flights, which is one of the most popular search engines that already exists. And in addition to the usual information you get from Google Flights, as far as all your, flight options and the cash prices, it adds in the points prices of Delta, American, and United programs. That's to start of those same flights next to the cash prices, and then indicates with an arrow, a simple arrow, which one you should be doing, which is the better deal. So we're really trying to get just at that really basic question of how do I redeem my points and when do I redeem my points? Those two questions, and that's what PointsPath tries to do. And then if you decide that you do want to redeem your points, PointsPath will take you all the way through into the airline's website, right into the search that you just did on Google Flights, where you can pick your flight that you want and book them with your points, and off you go.
And I've had fun playing with it in the beta phase as well. I think, to your point, I think it's great for folks who just really don't understand how to get started. And I even see like the experts in our Slack community using it, which I think is cool. And I think you've got some features coming up that will make it more valuable. But to this point of, I was in a meeting with a bunch of my colleagues last couple of days, and I had one person walk up to me who has 1 million points in a loyalty program and has never redeemed any in airline and doesn't know how to redeem them. And I'm sitting there going what are you doing? And he's like, I just don't know where to get started. And I showed him PointsPath on my computer, and it was like this light bulb went off. He's like, oh, cool, I get it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And he's, the three of us would be like, oh, you're silly. But no, he's not alone. Like lots of people,
yeah.
especially people who've traveled for business or had credit card for years, have all these points and miles, and maybe even just in like Delta or just in American, because they've collected them for years and years, and they just don't really know what to do with how to
Yeah.
use them effectively. So that's exactly the sort of person that we're hoping PointsPath will help out with. So
Cool. Well, I guess that puts me on the spot. I got to have an answer to my own question. And I think here it is. And then I've got a quick wrap, and then I know we all got to go. So, first off, I think episode 400 is going to define which one of 3 buckets is winning. And here are my 3 buckets. I think American has, for the most part, gated their program off as a transferable currency. They've got Built as a partner, but nobody else. It's a different model than some of the other folks are doing in terms of how they focus on co-brand. You've got Delta, which as of the time of this recording has made a drastic change in how credit cards interact with their ecosystem. And it's a bold change for how much credit cards used to get you in the system. So it's a very different change. And then I think this third bucket really is Built. And it's, we'll use Built as the header for now, but they're not the only one. These new currencies or niches that are using this points and miles ecosystem to help grow something else. So for Built's purposes, it's rent. And it's the new kid on the block, if you will. You could maybe kind of put VentureX in that third bucket, but I probably would still call that a separate thing. But one of these 3 models, and potentially more than one, are going to be a successful model in 2 years. But I'd bet that all 3 won't. And so I think episode 400 will likely be the moratorium on why one of these 3 didn't work. I don't know which one, but I don't see 2 years from now all 3 of these models continuing to be successful in their own right.
if you had to bet on which one you think would not be around or would be, lesser, which would it be?
My knee jerk would be Delta because the changes are so new and so painful, but I've got to be honest. I actually think it's probably American. I think they've gated themselves off too far. And I think at some point, the interoperability of the currency is what's going to help you survive people's disinterest in the value prop. And the less valuable you make the points, I think the more flexible they have to be. And Americans' points, both earning and redeeming, are some of the least flexible.
Mhm.
That's my 2 cents.
Yeah,
But
no, that's potentially a good guess. They've been like that for so long. It's clearly ingrained that they don't
yeah,
want to be transfer partners with really anyone. So yeah, I think that's another one where there would really have to be some sort of significant, downturn for them or whatever it might be for them to change that position. But you're right, that could happen.
Yeah, it's hard to be a lifestyle brand when you are sectioned into one part of a lifestyle. And I think we all would probably agree that the trend for most of these programs has been to expand into lifestyle or at least flirt on the edges of it.
Mhm.
It's harder to do when you're gated off. The other thing I'll say, I think we'll be talking about episode 400, is exactly what Julian is doing. It's going to be more tools, more products that make this hobby easier, and you don't have to have all this nerdy knowledge, although you should still have that because it's fun. But for the average person that doesn't want to do that, I think it'll be a lot more about tools and products that make it easier. So
Yeah,
good job, Julian.
completely agree with Summer on that. I think we're going to see more and more of these types of tools. We already see them popping up. So
Yeah.
there's no reason to think that won't
half a
continue.
dozen in the past 3
Completely agree.
months. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Agree.
Well, as we hit final approach for episode 300, there's so many names, I'm not going to remember them all, but Gene, who was on our very first episode, Mike and Gary and Clint and Jen and Gilbert and Howie and Tiffany and all these people in the community that you guys know have been a big part of helping me get to episode 300. Richard has been co-pilot for over 100 episodes at this point, and I just think it's really cool. I wish everybody could see the behind the scenes of trying to make the schedule work, but it was super awesome that 3 of my favoriteest people in the entire world wedged this into their calendar so that we could hop on and record together as a group. These are 3 of my favoriteest people to hang out with, and I couldn't think of a better group to celebrate episode 300 with. I sincerely hope and believe that all of you will be around if there is an episode 400. So thank you guys.
When
for
there
taking the
is,
time.
call us again.
Hey, Ed, that was so nice. I'm not even going to say anything snarky. That was really
Oh,
nice.
that's good. Oh, well,
I echo Richard. Congratulations on 300 episodes. That is a ton of work. That is really. I would never have made a cast episode about 22.
well, for 200 of those episodes, Jeremiah has been helping us produce, and before that, Glitter Mike, who is a great friend of ours as well. So those guys have done a lot of the behind-the-scenes stuff to make the show get to the point that it's gotten to. I think as soon as this episode is wrapped in the books, the line will start on what color headphones Summer will be wearing in episode 400. But I firmly
Red on
believe,
green.
I firmly believe that there will be kid headphones for episode 400. I am incredibly thankful for everybody's help to get this far. I love recording the show every week. And as we hit the ground and everybody goes back to running to all the other things they have to do with their lives, there's plenty more travel to go. Until we upload again, we've got miles to go. Your dog needs a McDonald's loyalty account.